Hello everyone. Warhammer Vermintide 2 was on sale recently. I have decided to return to the game, uh, not just because of the sale, but also because there's been an increase in players according to the statistics. So obviously I'm going to take a look at that. Since returning, there has been a lot of changes since I last played. It's taken me a while to learn everything, but I would like to think that I've learned them well and I've kind of figured things out for myself. With that said, I want to talk about Kruber in this recording. Prior to coming back to the game, I did look at other YouTube videos, articles, and other things to kind of give me an idea of what people think are good. Obviously, I'll take that into consideration, but ultimately, I'll do my own thing. So, let me talk about what I read and saw to start this off. When I was reading and checking YouTube videos, I did see a bunch of tier charts. Apparently, it seems that Grail Knight is considered S tier. That's an agreeable one. Huntsman is either going to be S or A tier. Mercenary is going to be either A or B tier. And Foot Knight's going to be A or B tier. I disagree with the tier listing slightly. And I also disagree with the builds presented for those particular career paths. I'm going to go and show you what I think is best, and then we're going to go from there. Seeing as I already have Grail Knight out, we're going to start there. So, with Grail Knight, I think your primary should be the Bretonnian Longsword and Shield, and then your secondary should be the Great Hammer. There's a reason that I'm saying this. I know that everybody's saying to use Executioner Sword on the Grail Knight. I get it why they do that, but I don't agree with it, and here's why. The problem with the Executioner Sword is that it requires you to actually be able to hit their head to see the most damage. It's not armor piercing, so you are going to have to, charge attack. You can see it's right here. It's headshot damage, wide sweeps, high damage. So you are going to have to charge your attack in order to get through armor. But the Warhammer, or I'm sorry, Great Hammer, is armor piercing, so you don't have to charge your attacks, and you can just go straight into whacking whatever is armored. Now, sure, it's probably going to work on other non-armored things, but at the end of the day, I think the Great Hammer is just a better option over the Executioner Sword, and I'll show you why, but outside of the armor piercing, there's other reasons for it. But yes, your primary should be this one. This one should only be used if you're not taking the brunt of the hits. If you're controlling a crowd or wave, then you should be on your sword and shield. But if you're not, and you're trying to rescue, say, a teammate from like a chaos warrior or something, and you hit them in the back with a hammer. So that's just kind of my take on the weapon selection. Now I'll show you the other stuff. So over here, I do have health and then block cost reduction. Over here, I have crit power attack speed, and then over here, I have curse resistance crit chance. So the reason I have it set up like this is because I recognize that the hammer is very slow, and because I'm not rolling attack speed on it, I'm making up for it over here with this attack speed, and then I'm going to hope that Swift Slaying triggers at some point to pick up on the attack speed. I have block cost reduction over here because normally I'd run stamina regeneration over here, but in order for me to see the most crit chance, I have to be able to use this slot. And unfortunately, it seems that Fat Shark has not fixed the whole curse resistance health issue. I find it really dumb that they still haven't gone back and just reworked all these properties and crafting. I think it's really dumb that you have to have curse resistance plus health. Like, it's just, I don't understand this at all. I really don't. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm going with the other equipment. But yeah, so I'm making for the attack speed elsewhere is essentially what I'm trying to relay here, and that's how I make the Great Hammer work. But yes, I do think this is a much better option than Executioner Sword, and you'll see why when you play it. As for talents, so I'm doing things a little bit differently than other people. Uh, in the builds that I saw out there, they said to use Virtue of Heroism or Virtue of the Ideal. I understand why they do that, but the problem is that this requires you to actually charge your attacks, and because I only pull out my hammer during bosses and stuff, I'm not really worried about doing heavy attacks to get through armor. When I'm dealing with crowds and hordes, I don't have time for that, so I don't see that as being a viable option. Virtual Ideal could work, but I do like to run critical chance, not just for the burst damage on the weapons themselves, but also to trigger this. Yes, I only have a 10% chance to trigger that, but it's a 10% chance that something's going to get dropped. And I would rather take the 6%, or I'm sorry, the 10% over that. So I do make up for it by using enhanced power. This is something that the builds tell you not to do, but I disagree with that very strongly. And there's a reason for that. It's because most of your time is spent with the Bretonnian Longsword and Shield, at least with this build, so you're not going to be using your Warhammer as much. If you were using your Warhammer more, then Bulwark or Smiter would make sense because that actually has the ability to stagger much better than the sword. But because I'm not on my hammer 24/7, there's no need for me to do that. Instead, I go enhanced power. There's another reason for this too. Enhanced power changes the amount of auto attacks that I would need to kill an enemy. Without this, I noticed that it was taking me between 2 to 3 hits for like trash mobs, just like, you know, basic Skaven on the high difficulties. But with this, I'm scoring 1 to 2 hits to kill trash Skaven and equivalent HP mobs in the high difficulties. So this to me is far more valuable, given that I'm not, you know, staggering as much, and also because it's just reducing how much time I have to spend in on that one particular group. Okay, moving to the level 20 stuff. So in builds, they do tell you to either use Virtue of Purity or Virtue of Duty. I disagree with Virtue of Purity for a very good reason. It's only adding 5% is what it is. So it's adding 5% to the cooldown reduction or 5% attack speed, which is great, yes, but the problem is it's very reliant on RNG rolling the right way for you. Virtue of Duty is not as reliant on RNG. It's going to get you what you want most of the time. I normally try to shoot for health regen and attack speed because attack speed is what I'm kind of lacking on. Out of the 30 or so matches that I've played since yesterday, I have gotten the health regeneration on 8 of that, so not even half, but it is what it is. I've gotten the attack speed at least 16 times, though, so that's good. So yes, I do see Virtue of Duty as being mandatory, and Virtue of Purity not even worth it. I think Virtue of the Penitent can work, but that would require a DPS-focused Grail Knight, uh, which would require a completely different build than what I'm doing, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So, as for this line, they do say Virtue of Stoicism or Virtue of the Joust. I think these two aren't even really an option. I think Virtue of the Joust is what you need to do, at least on this build, because of the push arc and stamina regeneration. With this, you can control entire hordes on your own by just simply slamming your shield into them. So that's why I was saying earlier that you're going to be on your Bretonnian longsword and shield more than the hammer. It's because you're going to be pushing around entire hordes for your team. The few times that the enemies aren't focused on you, you just pull out your hammer and beat them. That's essentially what it is. Or if it's a single target, then that's what you do. But most of your time is going to be spent pushing hordes, and this is far more valuable than the other two, just because of your ability to control and protect your teammates. With this, I have not seen my teammates take more than 400 damage on the high difficulties, which to me is a victory. It means I'm doing something right. Okay, last line. They say that Virtue of the Impetuous Knight is crap, and I agree with that. There's no point in taking that. But they do say that you should be taking Virtue Audacity. This is the one I disagree on. There's a Again, there's a very good reason that I disagree with that and go Virtue of Confidence. The problem with Virtue of Audacity is it's adding a second attack to your ultimate, yes, and it's increasing the damage you do to single targets. But the biggest threat isn't the single targets, it's actually the hordes, the groups. If you have a Storm Fiend, Chaos Spawn, or one of those by themselves, then your group can handle that even on high difficulties, assuming they're not complete potatoes. So that's not really a threat. I mean, by now most people know how to deal with that stuff, even solo. So I don't see a point in Virtue of Audacity for that reason with this particular build. Virtue of Confidence is better because I actually have the capacity to hit as much as 3 Chaos Warriors at the same time, whereas with this, I'd be lucky to hit 2. This is a cleave. This is basically a straight line attack, so I'd have to be aimed really well to hit even 2. This, I don't have to aim very well. This is just hit F, Chaos Warrior gone. That's how it is. So, in my opinion, Virtue of Confidence is far better. To summarize this build, and kind of put everything together in an easy to understand format for you. This build is entirely designed for controlling hordes and ensuring that you can control them. That way your teammates don't take as much damage. Your secondary objective, assuming that you're not busy controlling things, is to pull out your Warhammer and just do as much damage as you can to the enemies that are not focused on you, i.e. Chaos Warriors, specials, and so on and so forth. That's the build in a nutshell. Okay, so now I want to switch over to Huntsman. Okay. Now, in the Huntsman build, I'm using pretty much a similar loadout as my other one, and I'll show that in just a moment. But let's go and talk about this. So, I'm using a halberd here. You can see mine's perfectly rolled. I got this long before they made these DLCs and changes, and I have noticed that it's extremely hard to roll perfect percentages now. I tried on the Grail Knight with new equipment to roll perfect percentages, and I couldn't get anywhere close, even with like 100 powder. So they've clearly changed the RNG to crafting, which sucks, but it is what it is. So I do have a perfect rolled halberd from pre-DLC. I see that it kept everything, even with the changes, which is great because this is what I use on Huntsman. There's a reason I use this over the Tusk Scorer Spear, which is what everybody's saying to use on Huntsman. I understand why they do it. It's because it's fast and it's mobile, but the reason I use the halberd is because of, again, armor piercing. Like I explained with the Executioner's Sword with the Grail Knight, the problem is being able to hit the head. Once you run into an armored enemy, you're going to have to charge your attack to do anything to an armored enemy. With the halberd, I don't have to worry about that. I just simply point this in their direction and start swinging. That allows me to make the most of Swift Slaying on both builds. Swift Slaying only lasts for 5 seconds. That's 5 seconds that I've got to just swing away and pray that I do enough damage. So, on Grail Knight I'm using the hammer, on this I'm using halberd. The longbow is also perfectly rolled, because again, it was pre DLC. Again, armor piercing. Now, the articles out there and the videos out there, they're saying to use the handgun. I understand why with that as well, because they're looking for the sniper keywording to do longer range, but I'm not concerned with that. I'm not concerned with that at all. I mean, this does a lot of damage to where I can pretty much drop most things within 2 to 3 arrows anyways. And because Huntsman gets the ability to have more arrows, or I'm sorry, get arrows back on headshots, really all you have to do is just consistently hit the head, and it makes up for that. But this is far more versatile than the handgun, and you'll see why with the talents in a moment, but the reason I'm using this over the handgun is because you can get more arrows downrange in a shorter time than you can with the handgun's bullets. Why this is important? It's for controlling hordes. If you can get hordes into a confined space across a bridge or one of those factors, all you have to do with Huntsman is point the longbow in their direction, start hitting heads, and just clear the horde on the longbow by itself. It can do that if you're good at aiming, and you're very quick at it. But yes, as long as you can aim this downrange at a horde, you can clear them, assuming that they're bottlenecked. So that's why I do this over the handgun, because the less of a horde I have to deal with when it's in melee range, the better. I don't have stamina on this build. You know, I can't be as nearly as defensive as this Grail Knight. Therefore, I am very vulnerable in melee. The only way to fix that problem, the best way, is to whittle them down. As for the other stuff, I'm just using this because, again, it's perfectly rolled. Chaos is more of a problem to me than anything else. I'm not really looking for some of the other stuff that my other build was anyway, so I'm just going to leave it like that. It's 10% damage reduction versus Chaos and 20% health, which is pretty awesome. As you can see, I used the same charm as the Grail Knight. They both share the exact same thing, crit power, attack speed. And they're both sharing the crit chance and curse resistance, so I use the exact same things there. But okay, talents now. I have noticed with the halberd that I'm quite capable of staggering pretty consistently, so I can use Taste of Victory, although I could also use Huntsman Tally if I want to. It's really either or on this build. It's the level 10 where things start to get a little more complicated. So, all the videos and guides I've seen out there say to use one in the eye. I understand why, because it's more damage to the head, but I'm actually using it, keeping it coming because of the longbow. Keep it coming means that every third ranged hit causes the next shot to consume no ammo. That means as long as I can shoot the longbow at least 2 heads within a horde, the third one's free. So that means the third one can miss and it's not a problem. Meaning, well, miss as in it can hit the torso. Because to me, I'm aimed for the head, so hitting the torso means a miss to me. But just in the off chance that I do happen to hit the torso, then this allows me to essentially not lose arrows. If I'm going to be hitting stuff in the head, that means I'm taking my time to do so, which normally means they're going to be at a distance and not aggroed on me yet, so I can make up for it just by hitting the head again if I have to. Now, in this build, I can stagger, unlike the Grail Knight, but it's the same story as the Grail Knight. I'm finding that the enhanced power is just far better. It's what allows me to absolutely decimate hordes and do some serious damage to bosses, so I see this as important over these. As for level 20, I'm going to be making it look easy because after scoring ranged headshot, that means I get 25% increased critical hit chance. If the horde is just about to reach me, what will normally happen is I'll pop them in the head, and then I'll get 25% chance to critical with my halberd, which can mean an instant kill. So that's why I use that. That's not really worth it in my opinion, and this over here, I guess it would be better if you for like the handgun, because with the handgun it's a little bit more of a straight line shot, so it's going to be a little bit less in um, attention seeking. So I guess you could do it that way, and maybe that would work for the handgun, but I don't know. I just trust the longbow. It's armor piercing, it works, it fires fast. Why not? I actually don't even know if this works for the longbow or not, but moving on. Um, The guides or articles out there say to use Shotcrafter, which gives you 10% ammunition back for killing specials. With this and hitting the head, I'm not really concerned about this, so uh, that's not really worth it. But then this is where it gets really interesting. You'll see that I'm going to be combining this with a level 30 talent. Longshank says increase my movement speed by 10%, which is really awesome for repositioning, especially with a halberd and a longbow. But even more so, it's really great for blend-in. The builder guides out there say to use concealed strikes. Again, I understand why they're doing that, but if I'm hitting my F button, it's because I'm out of stamina or I'm in a really sticky situation and I just need to bail out. I'm not sticking around to, um, try to resolve the situation by force. At that point, I'm just looking to get as much distance as I possibly can, and Longshanks help with that. Um, this also makes it so I can do it more often in a round than I could if Concealed Strikes was on. So yeah, I will definitely be using this over Concealed Strikes any day of the week. Okay, so summary of this build. You're to use your longbow as much as possible for clearing hordes. Do not use them for bosses, unless you can absolutely guarantee that you're going to be hitting the head. So the only bosses or specials that you can really hit them in the head with are going to be stuff like Storm Fiends, Bile Trolls, and that kind of stuff. Bile Trolls and Storm Fiends are really easy to hit the head with, so that's what you use your longbow for, is clearing hordes, or if you can guarantee a headshot on specials and or bosses. Halberds for anything that gets too close to you. But yeah, your entire objective is to clear as much of a horde as you can with your longbow, and then if worse comes to worse, you have your F ability and your halberd to get you out of a situation. That's all I have on this. Thanks for listening.